Much to learn, you still have.
Yes, Master. Hey guys, welcome back. Well, here you go. Finally, my long-awaited, spoiler review of The Last Jedi. Now, just as a disclaimer, I've still only seen it once. My dad has not seen it yet. Spoiler comments are allowed, but I still hold to my usual policy of absolutely no profanity. No matter how valid your comment seems to be, if there's any profanity in it, unless it's an abbreviation, with the exception of WTF, it will be deleted. First of all, I'm going to talk about the things that I did like about The Last Jedi. Both Snoke and Kylo literally wiping the floor with Hux. There's this one scene near the beginning where Hux is sort of trying to apologize and Snoke reaches out through the Force and literally wipes the floor with Hux. I found that hysterical for the simple reason that I abhor the character of Hux. I honestly had this dark wish that he would have been killed sometime during the movie, because I hate him that much. He's a big snob and, from the looks of things, pretty incompetent too. And I did not mind Kylo tossing him about either. Captain Phasma is gone, but then again, she shouldn't have been brought back in the first place. I mean, there was literally no time for her to escape from that trash compactor. For the technical aspects, it's a very, very well-made movie. I mean, cinematography, acting, production design, costume design, all of those were just knocked out of the park. They did a really, really good job putting this thing together as far as the technical aspect of it. Set design, too, the animatronics, everything visually about this movie was amazing. There were certain things about The Force Awakens that I didn't like, and some people said this almost felt like a retcon of Force Awakens. To some extent, I liked that. They knocked off Phasma, didn't like her. Snoke gave Kylo a dressing down that I would have. You know, you're just a child in a mask. And that's what I would have said to Kylo. So that kind of thing, even though it was sort of a wink-wink, nudge-nudge moment, I liked that. I didn't mind that at all. Luke's reaction to seeing R2 was great. I love the fact that he saw R2 and finally smiled, so Mark Hamill wasn't just trolling us. Luke did smile in The Last Jedi, and that was so good to see, because most of the movie he's just this grumpy old curmudgeon, but then seeing him smile for just those 5 minutes, it's like, Luke, there you are. I mean, it almost felt like that moment in Hook where the little boy Pockets, is it Pockets, or I don't remember the kid's name, the little black kid, when he walks up to the guy, stretches out his face, looks deep, it's like, oh, there you are, Peter. That's the way I felt with that moment with Luke and R2. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Leia uses the Force. Now, this is a big complaint with people, but as a little comic pointed out, even though she was in the vacuum of space for a little while and used the Force to fly back, some people called her Carrie Poppins, some people related to Superman, I loved that moment. I was devastated. I read a little bit of a spoiler, and I thought Leia was going to die in this one, you know, by being blasted out into space. I didn't read any farther because at that point my heart was broken, because it seems like not that long ago we just lost Carrie Fisher, and then to lose the character of Leia, that would have, I felt like my heart was going to be torn out. But then we see her use the Force. She's a Skywalker, and we finally see her use the Force. Yes! And technically you can survive in the vacuum of space for a few seconds, and movies always stretch time out to make things more dramatic. Plus there was a precedent for people being in vacuum of space for at least like a minute or something. In the animated series, both in Clone Wars and in Rebels, we see characters in the vacuum of space and they survive. So don't act like, just because it's animated doesn't mean the same physics don't apply. So don't act like this is unprecedented, like, what? What? Star Wars isn't supposed to do that? Sorry, the animated stuff already did, and it's all the same universe. I really, really loved the handling of Luke's connection to his sister, even though he cut himself off from the Force. Him connecting with her and then basically waking her up from that coma she was in, the first thing she says is Luke, and it's like, ah! And then that moment at the end, I was sobbing, because that was one of the things I wanted to see the most. I wanted to see Luke reunite with Leia. No, he wasn't really there, but we got to see them just relate to each other. I needed that. I really, really needed that. If Luke and Leia had no reunion whatsoever, I kept saying it, there would be no justice in the galaxy. And with Luke's kissing goodbye of Leia, it almost felt like, I can't help but wonder now, with as close as Mark Hamill was to Carrie Fisher, if that, he looks at that now as basically one of his goodbyes to her, and that, it was beautiful. I absolutely adored the creatures, all the puppeteering, creatures everywhere. I loved all the creatures they introduced, even though the story behind them was sort of an unneeded, we were getting sidetracked when we went down to Canto Bight, but I love the Fathiers because I love, horses and equines, and I like their personalities. And I loved the crystal foxes and the way they got called crystal critters as they were leading everybody out of the caves. And I absolutely love the porgs. No, none of them were in there very long. And they may have just been put in there to sell toys, but every Star Wars movie has creatures. Even if it's something as ugly as Dr. Avanzan in the cantina, or something as adorable as the Ewoks. One of the things I was afraid of going into The Last Jedi was that we would see Rey at least turn to the dark side. Thankfully, she didn't even get close to turning to the dark side. For a minute I was doubting her, thinking she was acting stupidly when she actually went to Kylo and let herself be captured, a la Luke in Episode 6. But thankfully, she wasn't even tempted by the dark side. I mean, it was like the slightest poke, and she turned and looked at it for a while and then said, nope, don't need you. So I'm very glad Rey's not going to be turning to the dark side. She's firmly rooted herself in the light, and that, big relief. And another big relief for me is that they're not going the redemption route for Kylo. Kylo is now firmly rooted in the dark side, as I thought. I mean, he hesitated when it came down to it looked like he was going to be killing his mother. But at the same time, when he thought she was dead, he didn't immediately turn tail and start firing on all his compatriots. So that in itself is fairly telling, at least for me. Kylo is definitely firmly rooted in the dark side. There's no turning back. Even Luke has given up on him. I know Luke isn't the one to give up, but let's face it. Darth Vader could not kill his family. Kylo already did. So yeah, I believe at this point there is no chance for Kylo to be redeemed. He just needs to be defeated now. I did like Yoda's cameo and his attitude. It was more the Yoda we knew and loved from Episode 5. And I love the fact that he sort of went thunk thunk with Luke, like, kind of wake up, buddy. And I loved his line. The way he was talking, I loved the way that Yoda showed up. I liked the fact that he was in there. That was really, really cool. Oh, another moment that nobody seems to mention, Luke's casual pole vault across this treacherous cliff just to catch his dinner and the longest fishing spear ever. I loved that moment where we saw him just, very casually, and Rey's like, be careful, and he's just ignoring her and going about his daily routine. I loved that moment because, danger, it kind of brings back the sort of reckless Luke we knew and loved growing up. And the fact that he's willing to take these chances and they don't even bother him anymore. And that he's so good and athletically inclined that he can do that. I loved that moment. I also adored the way Luke made his entrance on Crate. That was definitely Luke Skywalker's best entrance ever in any Star Wars movie, bar none. That was awesome. I loved it. Initially, I felt like the musical score was very forgettable, just like Force Awakens, but just like with Force Awakens, I was able to download the entire Last Jedi soundtrack. I've listened to it all the way through. Certain tracks I've set aside and I love. There weren't really any new scores except for Rose's theme, and I kind of like that one. It's very soft, and it reminds me, it's like a cross between Anakin's theme and the end theme from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I really like it, and there are certain tracks in the soundtrack that I keep listening to over and over again, especially the finale, the little dum bum bum ba da dum bum. That it feels magical. I really, really love it, and the soundtrack as a whole, it's beautiful. Now to move on to the stuff I did not like about The Last Jedi. The plot. It was very convoluted and kind of random, and it did get confusing to follow all the storylines. Although Star Wars does have a history of things, you know, happening simultaneously, it was a little bit hard to follow in places, especially going down to Canto Bight, which I will get to. Rose's crush on Finn? What the heck? They literally, it felt like they tried to shoehorn in a romance, and Finn didn't even look like he was into it. I mean, he, you know, cared about Rose as a friend, but you could see throughout everything else that was happening, his main concern was reuniting with Rey, and Rose was not his main concern, so it's like, ugh. And that kiss, that was very awkward. Now, don't get me wrong, I did not want Finn to die that early. My heart was twisting, and I'm like, oh gosh, Finn's gonna die. But then at the last minute, Rose rescues him, literally putting everyone else in danger. And that was a very selfish moment for Rose, for all she's talking about, you know, the cause and stunning anybody that tries to get in an escape pod. And so that felt very out of character, and that was definitely a selfish moment. And Snoke. He was disposed of a little too quickly, although he was not the first Star Wars character to be introduced in a movie only to be neatly disposed of without hearing any backstory. Boba Fett is a prime example. He was introduced in Episode 5, and we knew nothing about him other than the fact he was a bad guy and a bounty hunter. And then he just gets dumped into the Sarlacc's mouth in Episode 6. I know people didn't like that either, but it's not like there wasn't any precedent. I don't really care about Snoke. I hate the character. I think he's too much of a Palpatine ripoff. So I don't mind the fact that we don't find out about him. Just, okay, goodbye. Goodbye, Snoke. We don't need you. Rey's lineage. Yeah, that was the biggest anticlimax ever. There was all this buildup. People were talking almost nothing. I mean, people were talking for 2 years between Force Awakens and Last Jedi, like, who are Rey's parents? Who dropped this kid off on the planet? People were speculating. My uncle was sure that she was a Skywalker, and then all this build-up, and then Kylo tells her, your parents were nobodies, they sold you for drinking money. Cue sad trombone sound. Wah, 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 wah. Now, he could be lying, and I'm kind of hoping that he is, but in that case, I almost don't want her to be related to anybody now, because all of her possible relatives that we're talking about are dead. Maz Kanata, she was a character people didn't like because she was CG, but I loved Maz Kanata, and honestly, I wish they'd brought her back, had her be the slicer that they were looking for, instead of doing this side trip and ending up meeting up with DJ. Seriously, the character of DJ, the one that Benicio del Toro played, he acted like he was on something, like he was a spice addict waiting for his next hit. And he was totally unnecessary. He ended up being a turncoat, and it's just, you know, selling to the highest bidder. I know there was story behind that, but still, we didn't need him. We could have gone with some of the more established characters rather than inventing a new character who was just there to turn his back on the good guys. So, there were some things about Luke that I absolutely did not like at all. Now his backstory, with his backstory it was understandable. A guy that's gone through everything he's gone through, he's gotta have issues. I mean, I don't like the fact that the books basically shrugged everything off like, oh, I can just move on from all these insanely traumatizing events and not have a little bit of PTSD. And that's the way I look at it. I'm sort of a war veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, Jedi, their only thing is they've got a talent for the Force, and they are essentially, you know, the essence of good. That doesn't mean they don't have personal problems. I can understand him having PTSD, and his reaction, it's totally understandable. I mean, my dad has got PTSD from his time in the service. I've dated former service members that have got PTSD, so I totally understand that angle. But what I don't like about Luke is the fact that he never really left the island, and now he's gone. That was like a stab through my heart. I may start crying again. Oh man. Luke's been my favorite character since I was 7 years old. I've grown up watching him. He's been, you know, my hero as far as the movies go. I'd love to meet Mark Hamill someday. And I didn't expect Luke to survive the whole trilogy. I was expecting him to go out in episode 9. I was prepared for that. But to go out in the middle of the trilogy before Rey's had any real training, why? Okay, apologies to you headphone users, but that's been building in me for the last couple of weeks, and I had to get it out there. Why? Why did you kill off Luke so soon? But that's the main problem I had with it. I can understand his attitude, but he's just gone too soon. I mean, Rey didn't have enough training, and he didn't have a chance to build a relationship with her. At least Obi-Wan, even though he was only with Luke a couple of days, he had a chance to build a relationship with his student, and you could see a connection there. Luke didn't do any of that with Rey. That is my #1 gripe with The Last Jedi. That right there. That being said, though, the way he went out, the imagery was beautiful. I found it very poetic, seeing the twin sunset and the building of the Force theme, and then he just fades away. It was beautiful, and people have said, wow, that's the way he should go out, just staring into the sunset, and he just fades away into nothing. It was just too soon. That was my problem with Luke's passing. It was too soon. And another thing I didn't like, with Luke gone, and now with Carrie Fisher gone, the Skywalkers there aren't going to be any more Skywalkers. I mean, Kylo has to die. If Rey's not a Skywalker, the Skywalker legacy is over. I mean, maybe in the grand scheme of things, they were an anomaly. Just an anomaly in the Force that weren't even supposed to become as powerful as they were. Maybe they were too powerful. It's, you know, but the Skywalker family is the reason I'm invested in Star Wars. Without any Skywalkers, there's little to no interest for me left. Without the Skywalkers, to me, Star Wars is, I mean, it's fun, it's a good movie, but it's not the same. The Skywalkers are the reason I invested in Star Wars in the first place, and without them, I don't have any interest going forward. It's just losing motivation to see anything in the future. Another thing I didn't like, one of the lines, I kept saying that if somebody says join me in episode 9, heads were gonna roll. Kylo said join me. Ah! It's been used so often in the middle chapter of Star Wars. I feel like that is the biggest trope, is join me. I mean, ever since Darth Vader said it first, he said it best. After that, it's just redundant. I mean, Cat Dooku is saying, you must join me, Obi-Wan. And then Kylo Ren, join me. Ugh. Honestly, those are two words I am most tired of in Star Wars. I would rather have them put, I've got a bad feeling about this in there, rather than join me. I know, I have a bad feeling about this. It seems like a cliche, but I missed it. I wish it had been in episode 8. The last thing about The Last Jedi that I did not like, humongous body count. I mean, how in the heck are they supposed to bounce back from this? They had like a dozen people on the Falcon. Maybe the people that they sent the message to, they were trying to scramble and they couldn't come, or their communications were severed or something like that. There are reasons why they couldn't have showed up, and there are people that are scattered throughout the galaxy that are willing to resist the First Order, but gosh, so many people dying. I mean, sheesh. At least they didn't kill Poe. Yeah, Poe is a little bit of a jerk in this one, but he's still my favorite new character. I still love him more than Finn or Rey. Okay, here's the biggest what the heck moments, I call them. Some people say WT something else, but I'm keeping it G-rated, so these are the biggest what the heck moments for me. The weird moments, the moments I didn't understand. The chase. Longest chase ever. They waited until they were running out of gas. Seriously? I mean, I know they could track them through hyperspace, but, oy. Why didn't they just, you know, kill them and get it over with? Why did the First Order have to wait for them to run out of gas? Now, there's a flip side to that. It was probably psychological warfare. They were just messing with them by not, just, you know, sort of breathing down their necks. It's like the galactic equivalent of somebody holding a gun to your head. It was psychological warfare. They were doing it for no other reason than just to mess with them and to rattle them. And Holdo not letting anyone in on a real plan. Yeah, she was the superior with Leia out of it, but with her attitude toward Poe, she had it in for him for the beginning. Yeah, he made a mistake, and people's lives were lost. He put, you know, yeah, he was too much into, you know, hopping into X-Wing and blowing stuff up. But, she could have prevented that mutiny by just telling him, oh, by the way, this is the plan, and this is the plan that Leia came up with in the first place. And if she told him that Leia came up with it, he probably would have listened, because Leia is, you know, she's kind of like his mentor. She's almost taken like almost like a motherly role for Poe. That infinite mirror moment for Rey in the cave, that was just weird. I felt like it went on too long. She snapped her fingers, it was just echoing. That one messed with my head, but it is Rian Johnson. We were warned that he likes to do weird stuff. Force connection between Rey and Kylo. Yeah, it provided a little bit of humor, like the moment where Kylo's standing there shirtless, which has become a meme now. But why? It's like, I guess that's the only way they could have communicated, and he could have sort of, you know, gotten to her without actually going to the island. But what the heck? I didn't get it. It made me squirm. Honestly, the connection between Rey and Kylo made me uncomfortable. Some people who ship Rey and Kylo thought it was neat. That just adds more fuel to the fire. I mean, there's some crazy people who think of a romantic connection between Rey and Kylo. Ugh, pardon me while I go throw up. But at least Rey was not into it at all. I mean, even when Kylo was there shirtless, she got uncomfortable. She's like, could you please put something on? She has no interest in him at all. Anyway, I'm ranting again. The stable kits at the ending. What? There better be some payoff with those guys in episode 9. Otherwise, it just feels tacked on. I know the idea was sort of to show that the Force can pick anyone, and there's always hope in the galaxy, but it just felt tacked on. Honestly, them going into hyperspace would have felt like a better ending for me. The green milk moment, where Luke just he milks, that just made me squirm. Maybe it was the fact that the animal was sitting up and not on all fours. If it was on all fours, it would have been more like a cow. But as it's sitting up, that made me uncomfortable. And the green milk, he just, you know, and it streaks down his beard, like, ew. Now, the things I want from episode 9. Number 1, I want Ghost Luke and Ghost Yoda to team up and finish Rey's training. I do not like the idea that somebody can be a self-taught Jedi. They need more training. It's like they're retconning the whole prequels and saying, oh, all those years of training, oh, they were all doing it wrong. You don't need any training, you just need to trust your heart. No. So, yeah, Rey needs more training. One way or another, she needs more training. Another one. Big problem. We didn't see Rey really fail. She's still too powerful and she's too good. We need to see her fail in a meaningful way. That way it'll mean more. That way we can see her get up. See how she does with serious adversity, whether it's a life-threatening injury or losing somebody that she loves. We need to see her fail somehow. Like her arrogance gets her into trouble or something like that. Like Luke did, like Anakin did, like every Jedi has to do. That's part of what's essential to being a Jedi. You have to pass the trials. You have to face some sort of adversary and come out stronger on the other side. That's what makes a good hero. Rey at this point, she's just too powerful. We've seen her succeed almost every single step of the way. We need to see her fail so she can grow and so she'll have respect as a hero. That's just all there is to it. Something else I want to see in episode 9. Well, either episode 9 or some sort of a follow-up. I want to see Rey track down those Force-sensitive kids and see her train them. If we can't see Luke passing on what he's learned, let's at least see Rey stepping into the role of teacher when she's learned enough and passing on what she's learned. Plus, that feels like something that's sort of missing in her character, is a little bit of maternal instinct. I just want to see that. Finally, the last thing I'm hoping for in episode 9 is I want to see Rey rebuild the Skywalker lightsaber with the Force. Yeah, that's the same lightsaber that Anakin used. It was used to kill younglings, but it's got a deep meaning for Star Wars fans. I kind of want to see Rey rebuild the lightsaber with the Force, or at least take the crystal and build a new lightsaber, because, okay, lightsaber is a weapon of a Jedi, and that's part of the trials of becoming a Jedi Knight, is building your own lightsaber. Luke did it, Anakin did it, now we need to see Rey do it. Okay, so wrapping things up, here's a summary of what I thought of The Last Jedi. I got what I most wanted and part of what I most dreaded at the same time. I have mixed feelings about it. I do feel like they dug this hole themselves. It started with The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams set all this new stuff up, and Rian Johnson's just like, we don't need this. Tossed it out. It's almost like the new filmmakers in a competition. Like, I can make a better Star Wars film than you can. No, I can't. No, I can't. It's like, ugh. They kind of wrote themselves into a corner. Again, he's a fairly good director. He knows how to get good performances out of his actors, but I blame this solely on J.J. Abrams. He's the one that started... Him and Lawrence Kasdan, they're the ones who started this whole mess by writing themselves into a corner, and there was almost no other way out of it. So, yeah, if episode 7 had been different, maybe episode 8 would have been better, but now they got to figure out a way how in the heck they're going to get out of this to have the happy ending we all need for episode 9. I don't care if anyone else wants a happy ending. I need one. If Star Wars gets too depressing, I just don't want to watch it. And the only motivation I have now to see episode 9 is I want to see how they handle Princess Leia after the passing of Carrie Fisher. And that's literally the only reason. Rian Johnson's trilogy, no interest at all. But I will say this movie's been very divisive toward the Star Wars fandom. I found that heartbreaking. There are several people on message boards who are saying they don't like Star Wars at all. Any facet of Star Wars anymore, because episode 8 ruined it for them. There's even people who can't stand the prequels, who have basically just written the prequels off, but they still love episodes 4, 5, and 6. I feel the same way. I mean, with me, the bottom line for me is I love Star Wars too much to turn my back on it. After getting home from seeing episode 8, I watched episodes 4, 5, and 6. I still love them. They're still my favorite movies of all time. And nothing is going to make me stop loving them. I mean, that's the great thing about Star Wars. You don't have to take everything of the official canon as gospel, because it's not. In the end, it's just a movie. It has a bunch of hardcore fans, but it's still just a movie. You need to take a deep breath and move on. If there's still aspects of Star Wars that you love, great. It should be something that brings people together and not rips us apart. We need to find, and it's the same in the rest of the world, we need to find common ground instead of finding everything that makes us different and then, splitting up because of it. We don't have to agree with everybody. We don't have to, like everything that they're doing, but that doesn't mean we can't still be friends. So, okay, I'm done preaching. This is probably going to be my longest upload ever, but that's all for today. Again, post anything you like about episode 8 in the bottom. As long as it does not revert to name calling or profanity, I will allow literally any comment in the bottom. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like it, go ahead and click that little subscription button below. But until next time, this is the Clumsy Jedi signing off. Bye, guys.